welcome to SAXU Update. The year 2026 did not begin with noise for Taehyung. There were no grand announcements, no forced spotlights. Yet somehow, in that silence, something began to feel different. In an industry moving faster than ever, where presence is often measured by constant visibility, Taehyung chose a different rhythm. He did not disappear, but he did not overexpose himself either. A quiet position, carefully held yet full of meaning. His name continued to echo across the globe. International media, cultural observers, and longtime fans began to notice a pattern that was impossible to ignore. Every small step he took in 2026 sparked conversations far bigger than the moment itself. Brief pause, and the same question began to surface everywhere: why? Taehyung did not offer many explanations. He did not speak excessively, but in that restraint, every detail mattered. The way he chose his moments, the way he maintained distance without cutting the connection, the way he remained present without ever needing to declare it. Industry analysts began to describe this phase as a sign of true maturity, a moment when popularity is no longer chased but carefully managed. Taehyung appeared fully aware of the weight of his influence and equally aware of when to let silence speak. In 2026, his impact no longer arrived as spectacle. It arrived as atmosphere. Something felt rather than loudly seen. Conversations around depth, quality, and meaning quietly returned to the center of the cultural discussion, as if his presence itself invited reflection. Fans felt the shift as well. There was no panic, no demands, only calm anticipation. A shared understanding that Taehyung had never moved without intention. Tone gently rises, and perhaps this is what surprised the world the most. In an era addicted to noise, Taehyung chose silence. But his silence was not emptiness, it was process. Like an artist stepping back to find the most honest form of his work, he seemed to be preparing something slowly, deliberately. Every great career carries moments of transition. And for Taehyung, 2026 feels exactly like that point. Not an ending, not a rushed beginning, but the space in between where the most important decisions are often made. The public may not see everything yet, but the impact is already there. The way people speak about him has changed. Expectations are no longer built on quantity but on meaning. He is no longer viewed simply as an idol, but as a figure with direction and depth. Longer pause. And once again, the question returns. What comes next? There is no clear answer. And perhaps that is the intention. Taehyung is not offering certainty, he is building anticipation. Not through spectacle, but through presence. As 2026 continues to unfold, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Taehyung is not stepping away. He is not fading into the background. He is preparing. And when the moment finally arrives, the world may be shaken once more, not by loud declarations, not by fleeting sensation, but by an impact that lingers far longer. That lingering impact is already beginning to take shape in subtle ways. Industry insiders point to the growing shift in how Taehyung's name is discussed not as a prediction, but as a reference point. His approach in 2026 is increasingly cited as an example of how influence can evolve beyond visibility, how restraint itself can become a statement. What stands out most is the patience surrounding him. In a culture accustomed to instant gratification, Taehyung's timeline feels deliberately unhurried. This patience is not passive, it is intentional. Each decision appears measured, each absence purposeful, reinforcing the sense that what lies ahead is not improvised, but carefully constructed. Observers note that this phase reflects a broader transformation. Taehyung is no longer framed solely by past achievements, nor confined by expectations attached to them. Instead, he occupies a space where legacy and possibility coexist, a place where experience informs creativity, and silence becomes part of the narrative rather than a gap within it. For fans, this moment carries a quiet reassurance. There is comfort in knowing that nothing feels rushed, nothing feels reactive. The trust between artist and audience has matured into something deeper, less about constant reassurance, more about shared understanding. As the months progress, the anticipation does not fade. It sharpens, because whatever comes next will not arrive suddenly or without context. It will arrive shaped by this period of reflection, intention, and calm control. And when Taehyung finally chooses to step forward again fully, unmistakably it will not feel like a return. It will feel like a reveal. Not of a new image, but of a clearer vision. Not of something created overnight, but of something that has been quietly forming all along. In that moment, 2026 will no longer be remembered as a year of silence, but as the year where the foundation was laid. And only then will the full meaning of this quiet chapter truly be understood. That foundation, once recognized, reframes everything that came before it. What initially appeared as restraint begins to read as discipline. What felt like distance reveals itself as clarity. In hindsight, 2026 may come to be understood not as a pause in momentum, but as a recalibration of purpose. Within creative circles, conversations have quietly shifted. Rather than asking when Taehyung will return in full force, the question has become how his next step will redefine expectations. There is a growing sense that whatever emerges next will not seek validation through scale or volume, but through intention and coherence. This period has also highlighted a rare consistency. Even in moments of limited visibility, Taehyung's artistic identity remains unmistakable. His absence has not diluted his presence. If anything, it has sharpened it. The space he leaves behind continues to be filled not by speculation alone, but by reflection. Cultural commentators note that this approach signals a broader shift in how longevity is built in modern entertainment. Taehyung's trajectory suggests that sustainability does not require constant output, but thoughtful evolution. In an industry often defined by acceleration, his pacing feels quietly radical. For the audience, this chapter becomes part of the story they share with him. Not a waiting room, but a threshold. A moment where anticipation matures into understanding and silence gains its own meaning. And so, as 2026 moves forward, the narrative remains open, not unresolved, but deliberately incomplete. The silence continues not as absence, but as preparation, a space where intention gathers weight. When the next chapter finally begins, it will carry with it the imprint of this year measured, deliberate and unmistakably his. Only then will the full arc come into focus, and only then will the world fully understand that the quiet of 2026 was never empty at all. As time continues to pass, this quiet chapter begins to influence conversations beyond Taehyung himself. Creators, producers, and younger artists reference his approach as an example of confidence rooted in self-knowledge. It suggests that knowing when not to speak can be as powerful as knowing what to say. There is also a growing recognition that this period has allowed space for reinvention without erasure. Nothing about Taehyung's past is being abandoned. Instead, it is being refined. His history does not weigh him down, it informs him. The silence becomes a bridge between who he has been and who he is becoming. Industry observers point out that moments like these often precede the most defining phases of a career, not because of anticipation alone, but because of the clarity that emerges from restraint. The absence of noise sharpens focus, both for the artist and the audience. For fans watching closely, the significance of 2026 lies not in what is revealed, but in what is preserved: authenticity, intentionality, control over narrative. These elements, once established, are difficult to reclaim, yet Taehyung appears to hold them firmly. As the year continues, expectations remain deliberately undefined. There are no timelines to chase, no benchmarks to meet. What exists instead is a quiet confidence that whatever follows will arrive, fully formed, carrying purpose rather than urgency. In retrospect, this chapter may come to be seen as the moment when Taehyung's influence matured into something more enduring, not louder, not faster, but deeper. And when history looks back on 2026, it may not remember the silence as a gap in the story, but as the chapter where everything finally aligned. A year not marked by absence, but by intention. That sense of intention, once established, becomes impossible to ignore. It reshapes how success is measured not by frequency, but by resonance. In Taehyung's case, the impact of 2026 lies in how deeply his choices register. Even when they are few, what emerges is a portrait of an artist no longer defined by momentum alone, but by discernment. Each pause, each decision, contributes to a broader narrative of control over craft, over image, and over time itself. This is not withdrawal. It is authorship. As conversations continue to evolve, Taehyung's name increasingly appears not as a headline but as a standard, a reference point for what it means to sustain relevance without dilution, to remain visible without constant exposure. For the wider industry, this chapter offers a quiet lesson. That longevity is not built by filling every moment, but by understanding which moments truly matter. That silence, when chosen, can carry more weight than noise ever could. And so, 2026 stands as more than a year in transition. It becomes a marker, a turning point where intention overtook impulse and depth replaced urgency. When the next chapter unfolds, it will not need explanation. It will speak with the clarity shaped by this silence. Because by then, the world will understand. Taehyung was never stepping back. He was setting the foundation for what comes after. And in that realization, the quiet of 2026 will finally reveal its true meaning.